Hey, all, Brad here with another quick video. First of all, I want to give customer of mine Joel a shout out. He had some of these Williams shirts custom made and sent me one out of the blue. It was a nice surprise, so thank you, Joel. Um, I'm wearing it now, and I'll probably wear it pretty frequently, so much appreciated. On the bench today, I've got a Trax board. Customer of mine Jennifer, her and I have worked on and off on a lot of Williams stuff over the years. Um, she, I think, picked up a Cabaret make tracks, which is, the smaller cabinet. They're pretty rare. And the board that was in there when she tried to power it on was not working. So she sent it over and was missing some colors, some sprites, and then she mentioned the audio not working. Again, I think I've gone over before, but typically I don't power a board up when I get it on the bench. I like to go through and do a visual inspection and check everything, and then typically I'll replace all the electrolytics. Things like that that I consider to be maintenance before I put them on the bench and power them up, because I have run in where people will send me boards that have been in a box for years and maybe a tantalum or capacitor shorted, something like that, and I don't want to cause any more damage to the board or to my setup on my test bench. So typically I'll go through and all that. So I'm sure there's occasions where by me just going through and replacing these parts fix the original root cause of the problem. I know on the traditional Williams architecture, the ribbon cables and things like that, I'll change those out before ever powering them up. So a lot of times by the time they get on my test bench, everything seems to be working fine, where, there was no doubt there was issues there before. So that's the only downside to the way I do this. But, again, my scope of control is only the board, not the cabinet and power supply and all that kind of stuff. And my goal is when the boards leave my bench and I ship them out, that they are in good solid working order, that I've tested them thoroughly and done all my due diligence to make sure, components that I think may fail due to time have been replaced and that sort of thing. So again, so the Matrax board is a licensed game. Williams licensed this board. The original title is Crush Roller. Similar architecture, I believe, to Pac-Man, that sort of thing. It's a Z80 base game, which is a little out of scope for my normal Williams repairs. But since it's officially licensed game Williams did, I do these and the Moon Patrol and the Motor Race USA. Those are IRIM. Um, so again, so first thing I did when this board came in, I cleaned it up. I went through and replaced all the capacitors on it, and these use, I'll show you in the things, but they use a lot of these 104.1 microfarad um, disc capacitors. They're these little flat, they stand up off the board. And when these things were made, I believe they impregnated, did vacuum impregnation with wax in them. So they would heat up a liquid wax and put them in a vacuum to try to draw some into this material, because there is some porosity there, and they try to prevent moisture coming in. Well, over time that wax is either leached out or discolored, and it leaves this white film. I doubt that they've changed the capacitance value or it's a real problem, but it doesn't look good, and it looks poor. And modern disc capacitors are much smaller, much cleaner. They have a harder coating on the outside. So, I spent the extra 20 minutes to go and pull all those off, replace them, and the board looks a lot better due to it. But there's a lot. There's close to 60 capacitors I changed on this board. A handful of electrolytics as well. I'll show you. In the audio section, especially, again, with the original root cause, could one of these capacitors been the problem with the audio issue? Possibly, but it's working now. Everything on the board is good. I also did an upgrade I'll talk about with the Matrax turbo chip that Tim Lindquist did years and years ago, I believe. It speeds up your character a little bit to give you just a little advantage. This game is really hard to play on some of the upper levels without that speed up, and it makes it much more fun, much more playable, and more, you can get through higher levels on the board. So let me switch over to the bench cam. Um, we'll go over what I did and then do a little gameplay and wrap this video up. So switch over. So talk about the capacitors. So here's all these disc capacitors. Most of them are 104s. There's a couple 101s in here. These little guys. There was a 33 picofarad in there as well. But again, like 60 of these things, crazy. So here's the electrolytics. The four larger ones are 470 microfarad, and the three smaller ones are 10 microfarad. Um, this chip is a PROM, bipolar PROM, for the video uh, basically addressing, and that was the root cause why this board was having all the sprite issues and problems with colors and everything else. So um, I was able to find the binary file online, which for whatever reason I never pulled it down. I had the binary images for all the EPROMs, but not for the PROMs. And there was a little error in it too. It was calling out in the file name. It called out like a 82S140, which is a real bipolar PROM. But anyway, this is turns out to be it's a 82S129, which is a 256 by 4. So 4 bits on the output only on these. Also on these boards for the video output for the video sync, the original boards, I'm guessing, whatever they were used on Crush Roller, they outputted negative sync. And for Williams, wanted the opposite. So what they did is they took the pin on the edge connector was over here on V, this corner. It routed all the way back down the board, back to a spare gate on a 7404 inverter, and then they took another wire and routed all the way back and used a different pin to output the sync signal in the same polarity as the other Williams games. So those wires here, they're thick and long, and they were right on the top, and they used some of this fibers tape to hold it down on the board. So I got rid of all that. I do it really neatly on the back with some 30 gauge green Kynar. It really cleans up the appearance on the board. You can see all of those 104 capacitors here. I mean, here's a whole row of them here. These are all used for decoupling, right? Just to prevent inductance on the board. Anytime all these chips cycle on and off, they draw a little nibble of current, I guess you would say. So instead of seeing all those pulses of current, what all these decoupling capacitors do is store a little bit of current in them. So when the chips draw a little extra burst, it feeds from here, not all the traces on the power routing on the board, and causes a lot of RF or interference problems with other chips. So again, here's the old capacitors, the disc capacitors, decoupling stuff, the bad bipolar PROM, all the electrolytics, and then the routing is what we ended up doing. So here's kind of a view of the board. There, I will put a link to some of the post video or images. There's a Z80 CPU here. We've got some RAM here. There's a bunch of 2114 RAM here in this section. Tested all that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bipolar PROMs on here, and then there's a custom chip that was added, Williams added, that I don't believe was on the regular Crush Roller here, to do some addressing. I don't think anybody's figured out exactly how to replicate this. We know what it does. I think in MAME originally they weren't doing it correctly. I think that was corrected, and I think they're using it correctly, but nobody's actually figured out, like, hey, we can program a PROM here, or a GAL or PAL, some sort of um, PAL device. But anyway, typically there's enough of these boards that are in really rough condition where you can find one of these. Somebody's got one available. So, and then I do have the JAMA adapter here from Trax, which works real well. Here's the new electrolytics in the audio section. This is the audio amplifier here. I also polished the edge connector, cleaned up the whole board, wiped it down with the silicone cloth. As you can see here, it turned out real nice. And again, I'm imagining this Williams serial number sticker matches the cabinet, the cabaret. This is where you set the dip switches. You can set if it's upright. They also made Williams made a cocktail version of this, so you can, I think dip switch 7 either being on or off determines if it's an upright or cocktail, so it will do a screen flip if needed. And then some of these other ones are for free play and coinage. And there's also a mode on here with some sort of like a black hole thing where you can drop into. Nobody really tends to like that, but you can enable that here with the switches. And then this is the chip I was talking about. This is the Trax Turbo. Tim Lindquist made these years ago, I believe. He had the binary on his site. I had taken his logo he had made up and made it into a sticker for the EPROM. So it says Trax Turbo, speed up chip. It's got the version, location is at 6H, and you can see to the left there it's in the right location. And then he had his link to his website there at one point. But this thing really makes the game much more playable. I do return the original 6H back to the customer. I'll put in a little pink anti-static bag, so we'll be good to go. So anyway, that's kind of an overview of what we did on the board. Here's the volume control down here, some filter capacitors on power, crystal oscillator, another 470 microfarad cap down there. So anyway, she's in really good shape. This is a very clean board, probably the nicest Trax board I've worked on. So let's switch over to, this is a vertical game. So let me switch over to my setup where I've got the vertical. There we go. Try to get centered in here. And then I do have the remote control on my bench, so I can send power. I have this hooked up so I can send power both to my linear power supply, and I do have a switching power supply I use for the JAMA setups on here, so that's what this one's running on. So again, kind of like the Williams, these go through some diagnostics, get the little convergence lines there, and then it doesn't really have an attract mode back on these games, but it's such a free play. I did map out a button mapping for Trax years ago, and it still seems to work. So I don't need to coin it up. So I'll hit start, and we'll jump right into game. And you should be getting audio and everything. So we can see all the graphics are intact there. Oh, I am absolutely not good at this game, or Pac-Man for that matter. Oh. Sorry about the phone making noise. Got him. Okay, you can see she's running real well. I will give it another 24 hours on the bench running just to make sure everything's solid, but I think we're going to be in good shape here. So putting your initials in doesn't really help because as soon as you power off, there's no non-volatile memory on here. And I'm not sure if anybody makes like a high score saves kit or not for these boards, but in any case, if you keep the game powered on, your scores will persist, I believe. But other than that, they will reset every time you power cycle the game. So thanks for watching the video. We'll see you here on the next one.